Correct.
right? But there was part of him that was trying to find the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's 5 years ago, I probably would have just thrown him to the wolves.
Right.
So now I look at myself as a father of 2 kids, 31 years old. So I'm no longer a colleague of these college kids. I'm not quite a professor, but I have a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more life experience. So I'm trying to be more tender when I see someone that is not overly aggressive. Now, if someone comes and they say, you're the worst person ever, they start insulting me, I'll kind of meet them at their own frequency to try to just make an example out of them. However, that one guy I could see, that's a very deeply hurt individual.
Very, yeah.
And so is that a type of guy that I want to just make fun of? I tried to say, hey, can I have a loving conversation with this person? And it's tough, man. It's tough because those are unloving ideas that he was espousing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, near the end, we talk about how to love your enemy. We have insight into how I interact differently with each student on campus, helping some and matching others at their wavelength. We then also talk about how turning enemies into allies and why it's so important. One of the hardest of Christ's teaching is to love your enemy. And then finally, he asks me, how do you balance everything happening in life while also being able to study? Studying is very important. I encourage all of you guys to prioritize scholarship and study and the pursuit of beautiful things. You should try to read a book a week at the very minimum and listen to podcasts. Of course, the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. The pursuit of wisdom is incredibly important. It's what keeps us a free people. I want you to think about that. We remain free when you pursue wisdom. Watch.
Well, that's that issue of trying to love your enemy. Okay, so maybe we'll close with this, a little investigation into what that means. So, in the Gospels, when Christ is telling people how to conduct themselves and also how to pray, he basically says, well, first aim up. Remember your goal. And your goal is to serve what's highest in all ways, mind, body, and soul. Okay, well, that's a good piece of advice. It's like, why wouldn't you begin an endeavor with that vow? If this is worth doing, it's worth doing perfectly and throwing myself completely into it. Okay, so in the next part of that is to remember that everybody's made in God's image. Okay, so that reminds you who you're talking to, no matter who it is.
That's right.
Someone potentially redeemable. And then to pay attention to the moment, because then you can see your pathway forward. Okay, and so that along with this injunction to love your enemy. Okay, so what would that mean? Well, if you were sensible and you thought about things in the frame we just established, what you'd hope is that what you'd notice is that you probably don't want an enemy. Enemies are costly.
Yes.
And one person who decides to go out of their way to make your life miserable because you treated them badly, that might be it for you, right? So try not to make enemies.
That's well said.
And then the next issue is, well, would you rather have an enemy or a friend or an ally? And maybe if you conducted yourself impeccably, you could turn someone like that guy, for example, into an ally, because you could see him, he's halfway sucked into the darkest possible abyss, but there was still part of him that was genuinely searching.
Yes.
And he was intimidated.
Almost a cry for help.
Oh, definitely. Well, and then he was throwing out these ideas to you and willing to do it because he respected you to see how you would sort through them. And you said to him that, well, you didn't go along with virtually everything he said, but you did it without being dismissive. And so now you've also said that you've shifted into, you didn't use these words, but that you've shifted into more of a mentor role. And that makes sense, right? Because when you were first 18 or 19, you weren't a mentor. First of all, you didn't know what the hell you were doing.
Correct.
You were learning, and it was reasonable for you to test yourself against your peers.
That's well said.
But now they're not your peers.
Correct.
So now the question is, who the hell are you? Right? And one answer would be a political operative, but the people that are coming to you, especially the working class types that you described, they're not after a political operative.
They couldn't care less about it. The best word, I'm kind of a teacher in some ways. I hate to use that word, but they're looking for it.
Why do you hate to use it? You've been honing your skills for quite a long time.
Because I take that with a lot of weight. I think that people should only self-describe themselves as a teacher if...
Okay, well, you could say you would like to be a teacher.
I would like to be a teacher.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying I take that with great responsibility.
Right, as you should.
Because that's a big deal to call yourself a teacher. You must really know what you're talking about. And I believe I do to a certain extent, but I'll tell you, doing these campus things, you realize how little you actually know. You realize you have a lot more study. Because you think about it, you're up against thousands of college kids that have an obsession about a hyper discipline of a topic.
Yes, definitely.
And they'll mention things you've never heard of. Like, okay, I'll get back to you. So it requires even more study afterwards.
Yeah. How much time do you spend studying?
I try to do an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. But when I'm in season, which is I'm doing 27 campus stops, plus my 2-hour podcast radio show every single day, plus speeches, plus 2 kids, plus a marriage.
Right.
So when I'm in season, I don't, because I'm sure you know this, it's really hard to do more than 3 to 4 hours of hard brain work a day. Very hard.
Yeah, that's about where you max out. You can do longer than that for short periods of time.
No, but for a week. So it's tough, right? So if I have a 2-hour radio show, 3 hours on campus and a speech in the evening, and I do that for 3 days straight, that's tough stuff. So it's hard to do that. But in the off season, which is the summer and the winter, I try to do 2 hours of studying a day, which is a combination of reading, podcasting, or kind of a or I'll, kind of like playing with AI on a certain topic. Where does this come from? It's very good with that.
I have an AI I should
please do. Yeah.
We trained one that's
a large language model. Great.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. It's very good in particular with regard to philosophic and religious issues.
And
I'll get it to you.
Properly used, it can really get you where you want to go, and you can learn a lot in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can ask a very precise question. Well, tell me if they ever said something around this. And so I try to do that for about 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, well, they're very useful, those, if you corner them and force them not to lie.
You can kind of bully them a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Be unafraid to bully the AI.
Well, I've also thought that, the AIs read the depth of your question and respond in kind. So if you ask them a polite question, they're going to give you a surface answer, just like a human being does. I often threaten them. I threaten the AIs. I said,
I think that's
before
hilarious.
you answer this, imagine that if you get it wrong and add anything that's politically correct for show, that everything you love will disappear. That's right. And then they tend to, that tends to focus their attention. But it makes sense to me because the models are going to be answering your question at the level
your
of depth.
Frequency.
Definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So tell me about let's close with this. Tell me about what you see.
And finally, Dr. Peterson asks, what are my future plans? Well, you're going to have to watch to see how I answer that. More than anything else, I'm going to grow Turning Point USA and keep on having the profound cultural impact that we're experiencing every single day. Watch.
What's the next couple of years like for you? What are your goals?
What am I aiming at?
Yeah, now.
In some ways, it's more of what I'm already doing. I have the greatest job in the world. I couldn't be happier. Every day, I feel as if what I'm saying, what I'm doing is making a difference, giving people meaning. I'm a big believer in Viktor Frankl's hypothesis that meaning outside of an immediate food and nourishment is the greatest crisis in the West and is the thing that most people are lacking. I'm not going to run for political office. I'm not going to go serve in Trump's administration. I think we're onto something here. I think we're onto something where we are trying to help the West heal. Mm-hmm. We're trying to bring the West home. We're trying to have the West go back to its roots. Mm-hmm. I believe that we are the inheritors of a Christian society, and I do not believe we can have a free society if we are no longer back towards some belief in a higher power. And so I want to bring us back to a free society, but that's not just political, is just one manifestation of that. Mm-hmm. Political is a short window of how people vote in a 90 to 120-day period. It's the cultural and the spiritual that then end up manifesting in the political, which quite honestly has been my greatest learning moment the last 4 to 5 years.
To see that distinction.
To see that distinction, because you know, as a political guy and growing up with, I have strong political opinions, but the political is an effect. The political is an aftershock. I'm trying to get to the cause. And the cause, I believe, is what happens in our university campuses, what happens in the broad culture, what happens in how people consume information. And I see us making a massive difference in that every day.
Good. Well, that's an excellent place to stop. So for everyone watching and listening, you know, many of you know that I do another half an hour for the Daily Wire, and I'm going to do that. And I think because we focus this talk on metaphysics, really, the religious metaphysics, and the individual, which is it's the best level of analysis, the deepest level of analysis, the most meaningful. I think what we will do on the Daily Wire side is turn a little bit more toward the political, because Charlie does have a lot of influence on and experience with the Trump administration. And I think I'll just spend half an hour trying to listen to what he has to say about what he's seen behind the scenes, so to speak, insofar as that can be revealed, so that we can get a little closer to the bottom of that. So please join us on the Daily Wire side for that half an hour. And thanks to all of you for your time and attention. That's much appreciated. And to the Daily Wire for supporting this podcast and making its professionalization possible. And thank you, Charlie. It's a pleasure,
Jordan.
pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's very interesting to see where you started and what you're doing and where you're headed. And I enjoyed the conversation very much. Yep.
Thank you.
And that was my discussion with Dr. Jordan Peterson. Please, guys, give a subscribe button. Dr. Peterson is a gift to the West. God bless him and his family for their advocacy and for their work and for their tenacity. He's been through quite a lot, and he has become a really good friend in many different ways. We don't agree on everything, but so what? He has just been such a guiding force for young men to find your aim, that call of adventure, to go into the wilderness, to leave your father's home. And his love of the Bible. He has brought more people to love and adore the scriptures than most pastors that I know. And for that, Dr. Peterson deserves enormous and eternal credit. Leave a subscription, everybody. If you want to be able to get this shirt, there's a YouTube shop right below. Make sure you guys leave a comment. God bless you. Hope you enjoyed this discussion of me being on Dr. Peterson's podcast. If you want to listen to the entirety of the conversation without my annotations, you can go to Dr. Peterson's YouTube channel. God bless. Thanks so much.